House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, thank you very much for joining us.
And Mike Barnicle, you have to be pleased. I mean, Donald Trump, a 71-year-old guy, and Paul Ryan still talking about youthful indiscretions.
Right.
You can still get away stuff well into your 70s.
I know, and I'm going to have Paul follow me in Central Park.
Oh, we don't
know
want to
any
talk
better.
about
Yeah,
that.
no.
We're in Washington.
Youthful
Raise it a level.
Yeah.
Would you please?
All right, we have Speaker-to-be Nancy Pelosi with us. How are you doing this morning, Madam Speaker?
How are you doing? The country is great. It can withstand anything. God is always with us.
And we're learning that right now,
God is always with us, so I think we can survive.
Let's talk about that, because, I mean, there are a lot of people obviously very concerned. And again, we have a lot to talk about, a lot of news yesterday, but I'm so glad to hear you say that. Our system's been challenged.
Yes.
Our courts have been challenged. The independence of the judiciary has been challenged. The free press has been challenged. So many institutions that we've always taken for granted have been challenged. And yet, 6 months in, they've all withstood some pretty harsh attacks.
Well, yes, but we have to enlarge the issue. Just everything you described is our system of checks and balances.
Right.
And also the freedoms in our Bill of Rights.
Right.
And so we have to recognize what is happening, because this is not a strengthening of our country. It is not bringing our country together.
No.
And so we have a bigger responsibility, much bigger than politics, Democrats and Republicans, to put this in a place. Does it honor the vows of our founders?
How do we get out of these tribes? People talk about the political tribes. How do we get out of this? Every 2 years we hear that, you know, somebody comes along and we're going to figure out a way for both sides to work together. How do we ever get to that point?
Well, as you know, one of the biggest divisions in the Congress of the United States is trickle-down economics versus middle-class income, and that economics. And that is really everything you see when you say, when are the Republicans going to disagree with Trump, and when are they going to walk away with Trump? Trump is an enabler for them, and they are an enabler for him for that economic principle. You know it well. And they sacrifice everything on that altar. Public sentiment is everything, Abraham Lincoln. To the extent that we can take this argument, this debate to the American people, and we come up with a compromise, respectful. I always grant people their position. I respect that they believe something. I don't know what the president believes, but I respect the position that our colleagues have.
You may not agree, but you respect him ideologically.
And Mike Pence.
Right, Mike Pence.
Right,
exactly. So where can you guys meet then? What is that? Can you think of an issue that you could work with Donald Trump
on? Well, we've
on?
always worked on infrastructure together. It's never been political until President Obama made some suggestions that they would block. But I think we have to step back for a moment and just observe what one of the branches of government is doing. We have someone in the White House who really is disrupting the checks and balances system, whether it's the courts, whether it's the Congress or not. And New Yorkers had said to me, you watch his behavior. This is how he operates. Right. And you judge it. First, he will try to charm you. If that doesn't work, he bullies you. If that doesn't work, he walks away from you. Just walks away from the deal. And if that doesn't work, he sues you.
Has he charmed you at all?
Well, I find his charm rather offensive. But no, no. But I mean, because this, you know, we're here because of what we believe, what our responsibilities are to the American people, and part of that responsibility is to find common ground.
Right.
Not to just say, I didn't even know what was going on here. I didn't know this is going to be so hard. Well, listen.
Your description of him, and this question is not meant to be exaggerated in any way, but you could see yesterday in Comey's testimony that every exposure he had with Donald Trump, he was growing more and more concerned. From what you've seen so far, do you have any concerns about his fitness to lead?
Well, you know, any of you who have been in the Oval, and you have, it's a very intimidating place. You're the President of the United States, the leader of the free world. Right. So when the leader of the free world calls you into his office, clears the room, says what he hopes you will do.
Well, first he starts and asks, do you like your job?
Do you like your job?
I like your job.
And are you going to be loyal?
Let me ask you something.
I want to be loyal.
If you ask somebody that's working for you, do you like your job? That sets the tone of the conversation from the beginning.
Well, it's a pattern. You know, do you like your job? I want loyalty. I hope you will do this as I clear the room. So he knew that he was going somewhere. And so for the Speaker to say, well, he's new at this. No, he's not new at obeying the law. And the law does not say that.
Was he abusing his power?
Well, I think that you could say that he's given reason to believe that this should be looked into.
Many of your Democratic colleagues, we had Joe Manchin on this morning, yesterday Chris Murphy, Jim Himes, others, were not willing to go so far as to suggest that this was obstruction of justice. Based on what they know, they say we'll leave that to Bob Mueller to sort out. At least inappropriate to ask for a pledge of loyalty from the FBI director and to suggest that he should drop the investigation into Michael Flynn. Do you see it as something criminal, or is it just inappropriate?
Well, it certainly is inappropriate. And let me just get back to your question, Mika. Yes, I do think it is abuse of power. But in terms of obstruction of justice, I think there's reason to believe and that Mueller should look into this. Because you don't say, as they said, well, nobody ever was prosecuted because they said what they hoped. Yeah, but if you're the President of the United States in the Oval with this pattern of behavior that we have seen while the Justice Department, their tradition is not to indict the President of the United States, it's certainly, in a court of public opinion, very incriminating.
I want to show you that moment you were describing where the President cleared the room. Here's Comey describing it. Take a look.
My impression was something big is about to happen. I need to remember every single word that is spoken. My sense was the Attorney General knew he shouldn't be leaving, which is why he was lingering. And I don't know Mr. Kushner well, but I think he picked up on the same thing. And so I knew something was about to happen that I needed to pay very close attention to. A really significant fact to me is, so why did he kick everybody out of the Oval Office? Why would you kick the Attorney General, the President, the Chief of Staff out to talk to me if it was about something else? And so that to me, as an investigator, is a very significant fact.
You know, Nancy's brought up abuse of power. Everybody's focusing right now on obstruction of justice. Of course, you could look at the president's own words and see intent there. But I'm not saying he's ever going to be impeached, but there is talk of, 43% of Americans in a poll want him impeached. Article 4 of Bill Clinton's impeachment was abuse of power. I would suggest that if you're intimidating the FBI director, and then you're firing him when he doesn't kill an investigation into collusion between Russia and Trump. And then you go to the Director of National Intelligence and you're using your office to try to intimidate him into doing it. And you're talking to other people that run intel agencies and you're using your office to intimidate them into killing an investigation, which may implicate you criminally.
Read that, Clinton, Article 4.
Yeah, exactly. It's in violation of his constitutional authority faithfully to execute the office of the President of the United States to the best of his ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and disregard his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. We can just stop right there, Mike. I mean, if anybody ever were to draw up an abuse of power article, they could just lift that from 1998.
Well, Joe, what's interesting about this, being in this town today and being in this town yesterday afternoon after the conclusion of the hearing, is that you could literally hear a gasp of relief coming from the White House. Oh, we have dodged a bullet. There was nothing in, Jim Comey's quiver that we didn't think was going to be there. There was no surprise and everything like that. Now, the stuff gets serious.
Right.
Yeah.
Bob Mueller now has it.
Right.
And Bob Mueller is a very serious guy, a very honorable guy. And if there's anything there, if there is abuse of power there, Bob Mueller will find it out. He will get to it. But my question to you, Ms. Pelosi, is, the level of expectation in this country about what Washington does is probably a bit lower today than it was prior to yesterday. What is going to happen to the agenda that both you or even the Republicans have on tax reform, on health care, this is Infrastructure Week. We did a whole bunch of stuff on Infrastructure Week. What's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen.
Well, let's just go prior to this. For the first few months of this session of Congress and the President's first few months in office, we haven't seen anything. We thought we were going to see an infrastructure jobs bill right away. We thought we were going to see an overture in terms of tax reform, which we all want to cooperate and do. We thought we would see some positive agenda coming from the White House. Jobs, 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 jobs. That's what the election was about. But we haven't seen anything come. So when they say this is standing in the way of his agenda, what agenda? What agenda? He says his tax bill is moving through Congress. There isn't a tax bill. There isn't a tax bill. What he's done is reverse. His initiative on health care loses 2 million jobs. Rural hospitals closing or laying off people in that respect. What he's done on climate loses jobs, the new green jobs for the future where America has to be preeminent. So he's a job loser, and he hasn't had a positive agenda. So when he puts that forward, or when the Republicans put it forward, why do the Republicans want to hide the truth from the American people? Because of Donald Trump. Because they sincerely are high priests of trickle-down economics, and that means everything to them.
Mark?
Besides telling the president not to tweet, if he came to you and said, I've got this problem with Russia, all these investigations, I really do want to get back to the people's business, what could he do? What would you advise him to do?
Well, what I have advised him to do, go to sleep.
Yeah.
Get some sleep.
Yes.
Bring yourself to a place where their synapses are working.
You said that to him directly?
I agree with you completely. You can
You
see
said that
it.
to him?
Well, when he called me the night of the Syria invasion, not to go into the conversation, was late at night, like at midnight, well after it was all finished. He was going on and on. And I said, well, it was like midnight. And I said, why don't you go to sleep? I think that, I think there's something not, more sleep might be a solution for him. But the thing is,
Well, and his people, just to expand on that, his own people say he doesn't sleep. He wanders around the White House. His family's not there right now.
Yeah.
He bangs around there with, like, Steve Bannon. He's obsessed with the news. He sits and watches TV 6 hours
well, I
a
don't
day.
really know. You know, I don't know what his habits are.
I'm just saying.
I understand what you're saying.
No, I
I'm just
understand.
saying it very
He's
carefully.
not in a good place.
Well, we're not in disagreement on that, but what I would say is this is really important, and I say to my members, if you want to talk about making a judgment about his presidency, you have to have the facts. So let's have an independent outside commission to have the facts about what the Russians tried to do to our election to make sure it doesn't happen again. Why didn't he ask any questions about that?
Amazing.
He wasn't even curious about it. Why is he beholden to Putin that he would put him on a pedestal, question Article 5, which is practically an article of faith,
Yes.
In terms of our mutual security arrangement? Why would he question whether he would do sanctions on Russia? What is it the Russians have on him politically, personally, and financially? Okay, so he is what he is. That's a question.
Well,
but
and
more
by the way,
importantly,
speaking of the
we
Russians,
have to
Nancy,
find what he is suggesting to take our country forward, so we can agree or disagree or compromise, but he's got to get to work on his job. And for some reason, he thinks his job is a reality TV show.
So
It's
speaking
so
of the
true.
Russians, we now have learned that Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, now has had a third meeting with the Russians that was not revealed. Reportedly revealed, reportedly coming from a private session yesterday. And the question that David Ignatius and I were asking before is, why is it that they lie about all of their meetings with Russians?
Well, let us have an outside committee. We have Mueller, as you mentioned, highly respected. He'll do a good job inside the Justice Department, reporting to Trump appointees, but nonetheless, a great person. We have the congressional investigations from the Intelligence Committee, House and Senate. Hopefully they'll be useful inside the Republican Congress. We need an outside independent commission to look into this. And it's bigger than Donald Trump, and it's bigger than Democrats and Republicans. It's about our democracy and a Russian assault on it. And so when you talk about all of these things, just remember there's something strange that isn't connecting. Now, I can't, as Senator Collins said, confirm or deny the issue of the third meeting, but I did say on March 2nd that he should resign, Sessions should resign as Attorney General.
Given the fact that very few people other than you, especially you, are more familiar with the stress of the job of the presidency, given your remarks a few moments ago, are you concerned about the president's health?
I think his family should be concerned about his health. But the fact is that this is hopefully not repairable. He is the President of the United States.
You mean you hope it is repairable?
Yeah. It's not irreparable.
Irreparable, yes, exactly.
Well, maybe I was right.
I just didn't want them to have that headline out there.
Maybe I was right.
Exactly. You know what?
So
hopefully it's not repairable, and perhaps there is an impeachment.
No.
Everything is. Look, I was on ethics for 7 years. You're only allowed to be 6, but they pushed me to 7. So I have worked on this kind of thing for long. It's about the facts and the law. Right. And there's nothing else. It's not hearsay, personality,
emotion, nothing.
It's not about that. It's about the facts and the law. We need to get the facts. I mean, didn't you hear yesterday when he said that the White House said he is not a liar? Didn't that sound like I am not a crook?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, so
that was painful.
Let's hear the truth. It may be exculpatory of everything, and let's hope that it is. But why would the Republicans stand in the way of an independent commission to investigate what intervention they may have been from a foreign power into our elections and an adversarial
It's a pretty basic question.
Part of the president's sales pitch during the campaign, Leader Pelosi, was that he was this master deal maker, art of the deal, all those things. When I get to Washington, I'm going to be on the phone all the time, making things happen, pulling people together. Has that been your experience in the first 4 months? Has he been a good deal maker? Has he reached out to you? Has he brought people together to get things done?
Well, I'll just give you this as an example. The first meeting we had, House and Senate, Democrats and Republican leadership in the White House. This is a big deal. I mean, it really fills you with some pride to have a seat at the table. A new president, House, Senate, Democrats, Republicans. I've been at that meeting with President George W. Bush as a leader and President and Speaker. Same thing with President Obama. And now here we are with a new president. First thing he says, to open the meeting, you know I won the popular vote. This is the first meeting. So I said, well, I thought since he's being unconventional, so will I, because I'm very respectful. I'm very respectful. You can ask President Bush. We worked very closely with him, even though we had our differences. We passed many things.
I bet you're missing him now.
Well, he told me I would. He said, you're going to miss me. But he said that a long time ago. You're going to miss me as president. I wish he were president now. I wish Mitt Romney were president. I wish John McCain were president. But as far as the Republicans, the people who voted for him, it's almost like any mammal will do. They were just voting, a certain way.
So how did you respond when he made that claim?
When he said that, I said, well, Mr. President, that's not true. There are no facts. There's no evidence to support what you just said. And if we're going to work together, we have to stipulate to a certain set of facts. When we worked with President Bush or when we work across the aisle, we all have to start at a place where we're dealing with facts, evidence, data, and then you can compromise. But you can't make up it said 3 to 5 million people voted illegally. You know this, it came out later. And I said, well, that's just not true. And he said, and I'm not even counting California.
Oh my God.
So, you know, that was pretty sad because he didn't even understand his place in history. And you can't expect people to respect the office of president any more than the occupant of the job does. I do respect the office of president. I hope that he will rise to that occasion. The fact is, he hasn't so far.
His first week,
he's gotten worse.
His first week was
I'll just say it.
Obsessing on the popular vote, which he lost, and the crowd size at the inauguration.
He still obsesses about the crowd size, and he even had multiple, and I'm even saying possibly dozens of pictures of the crowd all over the West Wing. Instead of pictures of maybe the president with veterans, the president with children, the president connecting with people, it was the crowds to show how big he thinks his crowds were, which is, I'm sorry, kind of sick.
Well, it's kind of sick, but let me just say, he knows he was trying to invent something that didn't happen, but he knows the power of ceremony. He knows the power of the Oval Office. And that's why he had him in the Oval Office, cleared the room, said what he said, because he knows how intimidating that is.
He
knows what that is. And that's one thing, this one question I have, which someday I'll get an answer to. If you're the President of the United States, with all that goes into this, historically and in current events, why would you go to Saudi Arabia as your first country?
Thank you.
President Bush, number one, went to Canada. President Reagan went to Canada, President Bush went to Canada, President Clinton went to Canada, President George W. Bush went to Mexico, President Obama went to Canada. Now, we have plenty of friendly countries he could have gone to. He went to Saudi Arabia as the first
Why do you
country.
suspect he did?
I'm looking into it.
I just want to clear something up. I asked you what advice you had for the president. You said he needs more sleep, and you told him that. Mike asked you if you were concerned about his health, and you said his family should be concerned about his health, and then you started talking about other things. Are you concerned about his health or not?
Well, I'm concerned about his fitness for office. And that's really the question. And I think, as I started to say, and we got into irreparable and irreparable, but I think that those around him, if in fact they have the confidence to do so. Because, you know, I said, if you want to go work in the White House, know your blood type, because he'll throw you overboard in a second, right? Throw you under the bus. So do they have the courage, the confidence to say to the president, some of these things are not, shall we say, in furtherance of bringing the country together, which is what we all have a responsibility to do. That's why I like to dampen down any of the talk about impeachment, unless you have the facts. But not just to say it.
Right.
Not to inflame the situation.
Correct.
Can you, I'm sorry, Leader Pelosi, can you say anything more about the comment you made about Saudi Arabia, that you're looking into it? Does that mean business ties, or why is it suspicious to you?
I just don't know. I just think it was a very strange choice to go there, especially in light of having served on the committee that investigated 9/11 and knowing the suspicions that exist in our country and among his people. And so, again, not to go too far down that path at this time, but he also, my understanding is, cleared the room there.
Wow. Minority
You're a good
Leader Nancy
reporter.
Pelosi. Thank you very much. And thank you for honoring my father today.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
One of my
We'll see you
friends,
there.
my college roommate, she said to me, of all the wonderful things that have happened to you as a member of Congress, that is the most wonderful, that you will be invited to speak. For speak.
Well, you know, Dr. Brzezinski, and Mika tells this story, Dr. Brzezinski, when he came out against the Iraq War in 2002 and 2003, was isolated. And so many people were angry with him because there weren't a lot of foreign policy giants that were coming out aggressively against it. And he was even not fearful, but even concerned about coming to the Hill, because even Democrats, a lot of Democrats, were shunning him. And he said that you invited him to the Hill and you embraced him when it was not a popular thing to do, being as aggressively against the Iraq War as he was. And he'll never forget that.
Oh, I'll never forget it, but we'll talk about it today.
He liked you a lot.
I loved him. And you know who else he
very much.
liked? Barack Obama.
Yes, he did. Yes, absolutely. First to endorse, still ahead on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.